What's up, y'all? I got a short little video for you today about how to make a sound that's like a blown speaker 808 that a lot of people will use in hyperpop. I've heard it in Dariacore. The sound by itself sounds like this. And in context with the little example here, it does a couple of different things, but I'll just play the whole example first and then we'll get into the different modulations that I have it going through. And so as you can hear here, it kind of has two variations that it goes through. So we have the fully present, loud, punchy version in the first half. Then with these two automations here, without the floor rot, it just kind of becomes a little more electronic. So instead of this, it gets like a little metalliciness to it, like a more synthetic top layer. And then with the floor rot, it washes it out. I don't want to spend too much time breaking, different parts of this project down because this is more just a one sound tutorial. So I use Serum to make this sound. Definitely going to include this patch in my Dariacore sample pack when I do it. So there will be some presets in there too. So the basis of this sound is the analog sine wavetable. And basically analog sine is let me bypass this. It's just a sine wave that you can add a couple harmonics to when you turn it to the right all the way, the wavetable position. So then next I add in a pitch drop. So LFO1 in the matrix here is routed to the master tuning here, which is in the global settings tab or the global destination tab. It's set to unipolar, so it only goes up, this just goes up 45 units, which is a good amount over 2 octaves. So once I turn it on, it gets that nice pitch drop to it. Also, I have this on envelope mode so it doesn't repeat. And then I also have it set to BPM sync and the anchor doesn't matter. And then the rate's at 1/8. So then the next thing that I have here is my envelope. Or I guess that's technically the first thing that I have. But the envelope's set to be like kind of mid-length, but it decays in volume as it goes. And the reason for that is like whenever I've mentioned this plenty of times, but I'll say it one more. When you're running stuff into distortion, which this sound is like heavily distortion based, when there's a dynamic range, so when the volume goes from high to low, it's going to help the distortion have different tones over the length of the sound. So to illustrate that, I'll just turn my distortion on and hear how that sounds different from just sustained, right? When the volume is changing, it gives it like a more percussive, bouncy feel versus the sustained one, which is just a wall of sound. So having volume differences and dynamic range with distortion is really helpful. So then the next thing that I have here is a noise that's set to ARP Pink. It's pitch tracked, and then I have the pitch turned up quite a bit. So by itself, sounds like that. I'll turn my oscillator back on. So going from there, the next thing that I have is a filter that only affects the first oscillator. So the noise is bypassing this filter and the oscillator B is also going to bypass it once I turn that on. And the only thing that I'm doing here is turning the cutoff, to like a mid-range, which doesn't matter with the sine wave because it's not really that present in the high end anyways, right? So it's just cutting some of that top off. And as you can hear, it gets quite a bit louder. That's because the drive is pushed all the way up and then the mix is turned all the way up on that too. So add my noise back in, and we have that sound. So moving from there to the effects, we'll come back to the second oscillator layer later. The next thing that I have is a chorus effect. So I have chorus with a tiny little bit of width. So I have a chorus with like a really slow wobble setting. So if I turn it all the way up and play the note repetitively like that, you can hear how it's just slowly going through the different phasiness there of it, and you can kind of see it here. It's just getting phasey and like kind of slowly combing through the harmonics of the, or not even, I guess it is harmonics of the noise up top. It also does that on the sub note, but I keep the wetness pretty low on this. And so you can get this type of sound by having like low feedback, low depth, low delay, and then a slow rate. If I turn the rate up and keep my mix up, as you can see, it's getting really washy and wobbly. I'm not going for that. With this, I want it to be really low rate. Yeah, that sounds good. So then I bring a distortion in, and this is what's going to start kind of getting this sound together. So it's set to diode 1 mode. The drive's at 80%. And as you can see there, we've lost a ton of dynamic range. So if I bring my oscilloscope or my, my loudness reader here, as you can see, we're actually losing gain, but we're gaining crunchiness there. So as the gain runs into that distortion, it compresses it way down and turns it into that like blown out speaker type hyperpop sound. And you can get that with diode 2, linear fold. You can run it way back and get the same type of sound. Not quite as good there. A good many of the distortions will do that. Soft clip, a less strong version of it. Hard clip, a stronger version than soft. But diode is really diode and diode 2. And I think rectify, no, not rectify, asymmetrical also brings that in. Experiment with this and find the one that you like. Stomp box, yep. Tape saturation, if you turned it up, probably would. And also any of them that don't sound blown out, if you just push enough gain into it, it will get blown out. So if I get the softest one, which is probably soft clipper, and then add a ton of gain to the low end before the distortion, as you can hear, it's doing the same effect pretty much. And again, once I have this distortion with the diode turned on, it's kind of driving my ARP, my pink ARP noise or whatever that is, to go from like just noisy to like crusty, right? Without it. And then once I add my noise back in, it gets really weird and crusty on the top end. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for with that. I'll turn this on, but we'll talk about it later in a minute. And from there, I think we'll just roll into post effects. So as far as post effects go here, so basically I think I added the compressor first, right? And so it's just kind of gluing the sound together here. Right, so just, you can see it's like pretty short attack and then a little bit longer release, which is gonna help the sound just be, what's the word I would use for that? More loud and more present. It's not really even, I guess it's gluing it together some, because you can see it gets flatter. Yeah, and just a little bit more powerful. But the thing was with that, once I had added the compressor, this set of frequencies right here, as you can see, I kind of did boosting to scoop it out, is so loud that like with my other melodic elements and drum elements, it kind of just overpowers them. I heard that off key note there. That's kind of unpleasant. So normally I think people would say, go in, don't do additive EQing, do subtractive. And I tried to do it with a really sharp little band like this, but I felt like I was losing too much of the power of the low end of the 808 by doing that. I just really couldn't get it to work. So instead, I boosted the lows. As you can hear, that gets it nice and chunky in the low end. And also boosted the highs. Which what that does is, since I'm boosting the lows and boosting the highs and sending it into heavy gluing compression, right? This glues it together. And it's much heavier once I've boosted the frequencies that much, right? As you can see, without this EQ, it's only passing the threshold by that much, but once the EQ's on, it's going way past it. What that does is compresses the signal, but the lows are louder and the highs are louder, so the mids will get even quieter. And they may not get even quiet. Yeah, they'll get quieter. It'll be quieter than just the EQ. So then playing that all together, right? Versus it almost gets plasticky and less warm. So from there, let's move into the last piece of this, which is the floor rot and electrode. So as you can see here, we have two different automations that go from 0 to the maximum, and they are floor rot and electrode. Very simply, electrode is, let me turn the reverb off. Electrode just turns on this oscillator B, which is by itself just like a really nasally amp modulation from A, right? Gives it like that crunchy, crispy digital sound that I felt like worked for this second section right here, and also just added some warmth to the second piece of this. And also this is bypassing the filter, so it's not getting sent into that filter. It's just going right past it. And the second piece of this, which helps, you know, bring it together even more, is the floor rot, which is a really short hall reverb. So the size is at the lowest, the decay is pretty short, no low cut, maximum high cut, right? So I'm not letting all those highs in. It's kind of meant to just be a muddy little sub here. And so that turns on, and we get this weird, just muddy, odd sub bass that when I finish this track, I think I'll go in and like gain match this to the first piece here. As you might be able to hear, there's quite a volume difference between this and this. Well, actually, there's not too much. It just probably needs a little bit more mids to sound present. Yeah, it's just losing some chunkiness in here. I might go and fix that in the final one. I thought it would be a lot bigger of a volume difference, but it's not really that bad. So again, if I didn't make this clear enough, the reason that it's getting muddy like that is because this floor rot knob just turns the mix on this reverb all the way up. And so just kind of gives it like a little interesting breakdown, less energy, you know, high energy to low energy, and then there's a drop right here in the big full version of the track. So with that being shown, I think that's where I'm going to end this one. Thank y'all for watching. I was thinking about doing a tutorial on these super weird snares. So my next tutorial is going to be about breaks. So keep on the lookout for that one. I think it's going to be next week. If you want to see a tutorial on how to do really weird snares like this, like even weirder than I think the average Willow snare is, just let me know in the comments, and I have this separated out to do a separate tutorial on that if people are interested. So thank you for watching, and I will see y'all in the next one.